Welcome back to the CNR recap. I'm Griffin Aldrich. Alongside me, we got Tommy Martinotti. And Tommy, I'm ecstatic tonight. The Boston Celtics defeated the New York Knicks with a final score of 117 to 123. Tommy, we're going to get into this game, but I am hyped up. This is a game that we all anticipated the Celtics to lose against in last week's podcast. This was a game that at the beginning of the game, it didn't, rather, the first quarter did not look competitive whatsoever. And this was a game where from the get go, and we're going to look at the differentials, and I'm pulling it up right now and we'll pull it up later. But this was a game that you look and that first half, it did not look like the Celtics had it at all whatsoever. But what are your thoughts, Tommy? And bring it to us because this was a crazy game.
Yeah, after the first 4 minute stretch, the Celtics were down 17-4, and I was kind of thinking it was going to look like one of those games where the Celtics forget how to play team basketball. But they bounced back. Jaylen Brown had a huge second quarter, which gave them a huge boost on why they got back into the game. In that first quarter, they kind of turned the ball over, and the Knicks got some easier looks. Josh Hart was hot in that first quarter as well. And then the Celtics defensively kind of stepped up and made the game a little harder for the Knicks offensively. And then Brown had probably, I would say, one of his best quarters of the season. Just his attacking to the paint, creating for others, getting the crowd involved too after that one really impressive dunk by him. So I thought it was a great team effort. They got a lot of contributions off the bench. Minot came in, had 11 points. He had 3 threes. And I feel like Minot's looking more comfortable shooting the ball. Kind of when guys like Brown, Pritchard, and White get downhill and kick out that corner three for Minot. He's looking a lot more confident than he was early on in the season. And then again, Hugo Gonzalez and Jordan Walsh playing absolute great games. I think Walsh's fourth quarter really probably won the game for this team down the stretch. He had 2 back-to-back offensive rebounds, one with, I think it was like 7 or 8 minutes to go. The Celtics were only up 5 at that time, or no, they were only up 3, and Walsh got offensive rebound, put back to put them up 5, and then next possession, same thing, offensive rebound came down with it, went right back up. That put the Celtics up 8, and the Knicks called a timeout with 3:30 remaining, so that kind of allowed the momentum to swing back to the Celtics. It was really a back and forth game, a lot of huge runs by both teams. It looked like at the end of the third, the Celtics were in a great spot. And then, of course, a few stupid fouls behind the 3-point line, a few tough shots made by Miguel Bridges, and the Knicks cut it to, I believe, 4-3 in the fourth. So at that point, it definitely got a little bit scary, but we saw them bounce back and end up pulling away and getting the victory.
Yeah, and you mentioned that too. You mentioned 2 things right there, Tommy. Jaylen Brown was absolutely cold in the first quarter, and it did not look like he was going to have the monstrous game that he did have. And we'll get into that later with Celtics Nation Rise MVP, but also Jordan Walsh. I mean, his contributions tonight were incredible down the stretch, and he's a player that, we looked past a lot. Like earlier in the season, we're like, do we move this piece? Like, where do we go from here? But now it's like, are they developing him in a way where he could incredibly impact this team down the road? Because I mean, tonight he looked like a player that was giving it all for the Celtics in crunch time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of been his play style ever since he was given even a little bit of a role a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago at this point now. But he's always guarding the best defender. His length on defense makes whoever he's guarding makes it harder for the offensive player. He guarded Brunson very well tonight. Brunson struggled all night long. Brunson was 6 for 21 from the field and 1 of 8 from 3. So I would like to kind of dig into that more and kind of see what his stats were when Jordan Walsh was on him. But just from those numbers, I know they weren't good. And I feel like that's a trend we've seen a lot from Jordan Walsh guarding the other team's best player is he makes it hard for him and he kind of makes other guys on the team beat you. And I think that's why we see him getting more and more minutes. He only played 19 minutes tonight, but they were very valuable minutes down the stretch of the game. So, and he's been starting. So I'm been extremely impressed with him this
Yeah,
past month or so.
yeah, and I agree, and I want to add in this too, I thought the Celtics defensively weren't gonna be such a hot team this year, given the fact that Anthony Simons is a guy who's pretty much a traffic cone on defense, but they have guys like Jordan Walsh and Ugo Gonzalez who stepped up and became incredible tonight. So you're right about that, Tommy, and you hit down the head that the defensive presence from those two guys was just unmatched. And, keeping this game, and especially in crunch time, because 9 out of 10 times we're seeing this Celtics team lose this game, especially down the stretch. And I want to say, Tommy, the past few wins that we've gotten, is this team ready to be a contender this year? I don't know if we're at that topic, but they beat the Cavs, they beat the Pistons, and they beat the Knicks.
I don't know
I
if
don't
they're
know this.
contenders, but they show that how they can compete with pretty much any team in the Eastern Conference, and I've kind of expected that from this team even at the beginning of the year when we started 0-3. I'm probably the most anti-tank fan there is, to be honest, because I see the talent they have on this roster, even though it may not always be pretty. And I'm not saying they're going to be in the championship this year, but who knows if they can compete and hopefully get Tatum back later in the season and maybe pick up another big. And I think this team can be a tough out in the Eastern Conference this year. It's just a consistency thing with this team, and you want to see them kind of beat up on those bad teams, the games that they should win. You want to see them win more often, but you saw them win a tough second night of a back-to-back in Cleveland, and then getting this game against obviously a tough New York team. So it's proving to the fans at this point now that this team can, possibly be a threat, and they're not just going to roll over and die this season.
Yeah. And now I want to kind of give quarters because, again, I'm going to pull up the differentials again. The Boston Celtics in the first quarter were outscored by the New York Knicks with a score of 21-32. And again, you see that kind of differential slip down to the Celtics midway through the second because the Celtics did defeat the Knicks in the second quarter. And I think that and the third were their most crucial quarters because in the second, they kept the Knicks to 20 points and scored 37. And in the third quarter, they kept the Knicks to 24 and scored 36. So those were the most valuable minutes. And obviously, down the stretch as well, as you see the fourth quarter, the Knicks, you kind of see it kind of slip up because the Knicks scored 41 and the Celtics scored 29, but the Celtics were still able to close it out with a 117-123 victory. But you see that, it looked, and that's why, from my perspective, too, I thought when I first saw this game, I was like, all right, we're kind of at the same. I was like, did I expect it a little bit? But then it completely shocked me, Tommy, when the Celtics came out in the second quarter and really blew the Knicks out of the water. And they just kept going with it. They kept cruising. The momentum kept going. And they slowed down in that third quarter, especially because the Knicks 41 points to 29. But the Boston Celtics were still a team that ended victorious at the end of the day. And it was due to Jordan Walsh's clutch minutes down the stretch. And that's why we'll get into it later. But that's why I think he's a serious threat for Celtics Nation Rise MVP. But we'll get into that later. But what else do you think about the Celtics? The biggest the biggest leads the Knicks had 14 with 11:07 in the second, and the Boston Celtics were up 18 in the third quarter with 3 seconds left. So again, the Celtics pretty much owned this game, but any thoughts before we get into player stats?
I just think it was a crazy game and kind of just how the NBA is today of how the game's never really over. I feel like in the first 4 minutes it was going to be a long game, and then we saw the Celtics battle back and eventually take an 18-point lead at the end of the third, and then we saw the Knicks battle back and cut it to, I believe it was 3 points in that fourth quarter. So I feel like this is always a good matchup between the Knicks and the Celtics, and just another you can just see the game changing and how, you see these 20-point leads. And back 10, 15 years ago, if your team was up 20 or down 20, you knew the game was pretty much over in most cases. But in today's game, that's just not the case due to the talent and just the quicker pace that these players and coaches want to play with. So it's a really back and forth game, and it was good to see the Celtics not fold at the end of that fourth quarter and give the game away. And it was good to see them kind of bounce back and pull away and get this win.
Yeah, and one thing I do have to say, and you said it, is the pace of the game, and I think that's where the Celtics really dominate because, last year and the year before, like, we won the championship, we had a great team that connected, but then we started having old legs, Drew Holiday getting older, Porzingis injury prone, Al Horford obviously old and on his way out. Now you have guys like Jordan Walsh stepping up, Josh Minot. You got guys like Nemias Queta who are young, fresh legs, and that just benefits the Celtics because they're a team that they want to be fast like OKC and shoot the lights out. But one thing again, too, before we get into player stats, so that really stood out to me. 10 turnovers for the Knicks and the Celtics, and that was very impressive because again, we're a very young team and we're limiting mistakes. Jaylen Brown did have 4 of those turnovers, but also the thing that really impressed me for the Celtics, we had 38 rebounds opposed to 34 for the Knicks. So again, another night that the Celtics are out rebounding a team, and that just shocks me because we're not the best at rebounds. I feel like that's a continuous issue that we're having, but Celtics have been rebounding the ball, and that impresses me, especially against going guys like Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns. So
Yeah.
that was one thing that really impressed me
Yeah, I think
tonight.
that's a great point. And I literally was going to say that as soon as you wrapped up. You literally said everything I was going to say next. And Josh Hart as well. He's probably one of the best undersized rebounders in the NBA. So the Knicks on the stat sheet are a great rebounding team. They have a lot of size. I think the Celtics don't have anybody that really matches up well with Karl Anthony Towns. We saw that a little bit tonight, but again, we didn't, let him beat us in the fourth quarter, so that was good to see. But yeah, I'll just head right into the player stats for the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns had a good game for them, 29 points, 12 and 19 from the field, and 7 rebounds. So he didn't kill the Celtics on the glass, which is a good sign. Brunson, he was a big question mark for the Knicks tonight, a rare off night, especially against the Celtics. It felt like only 15 points off on 6 of 21 shooting, so not an efficient night for Brunson. But Miguel Bridges picked up the slack for the Knicks and really got red hot in that second half. 8 of 12 from 3, 12 of 17 from the 4, and he had 35 points. He's a great player for the Knicks, I think. Along with Derek White, they're kind of two of the best role players that you could have in the NBA. So Miguel Bridges stepped up for the Knicks tonight. Then for the Celtics, Queta had a solid game, 8 points, didn't miss a shot. He went 4-4, 6 rebounds. I thought Queta played a solid game. Derek White starting to shoot the ball a little bit better, 8 of 16 from the field. He had 22. Pritchard struggled tonight a little bit, but after his 42-point performance against Cleveland, I think we can all live with this. Still had 10 points. And he had 3 assists, which you kind of want to see his playmaking kind of stay consistent with those higher assist numbers. But, we're not going to lose any sleep over that. And then Jaylen Brown, what a night for him. He had 42 points, 6 of 24 from the field, so extremely efficient. 2 for 6 from 3, and he did get to the free throw line tonight more, which I know he has been wanting to do, getting more calls from the officials and getting to that free throw line and being aggressive. So another outstanding game from our guy JB. And then our bench was great all across the board, in my opinion. Anthony Simons, 12 points, 5 for 9 from the field. Pretty efficient night from him. Hauser hit a few threes. Minot came in and played great minutes. And Hugo Gonzalez, again, doing Hugo Gonzalez things, doing all of the little things, getting on the floor, then playing exceptional defense. So really a great stat line across the board, I felt like, for the Celtics tonight.
Yeah, and 2 players again that you mentioned too, I really want to highlight is Josh Minot, who again you said it, but what really impresses me is this is a player who played at the end of the bench for the Timberwolves. And I said against the Timberwolves, this is a guy where, when we played them, they're banging their heads against a wall because they're like, why couldn't we figure this guy out earlier? But he came in the fourth quarter, and it's just the fact that he's never really been in crunch time minutes for the Timberwolves. As far as I know, I've never seen him play in crunch minutes, but he knocked down, I don't know if it was one or two threes from the corner, but that's impressive to still perform under pressure and be in crunch time. So very impressed by Josh Minot. And the other guy I wanted to mention too, he was in for I think a possession, so it doesn't really count. But Amari Williams, I want to talk about him because this is a guy where we've been talking about. Go check out the main report. Go to Instagram and check out what we're doing. We'll talk about this at the end too for you guys. But this is a guy where this is the second game he's played, I think, this season, and or third. But I am questioning if they give him more minutes. Do you see him taking over more minutes? Because again, Luka Garza didn't play tonight, Tillman didn't play tonight, or Boucher. Three of their bigs did not play. Could Amari take over one of their positions?
I think he could, based off just his size. I think he just has to get more comfortable to the NBA speed and being comfortable guarding the free ball because of how many big guys in today's game can stretch the floor. But I think as he grows, as a player and gets more minutes in the league, I think he can be a threat to kind of take over that either probably that backup or third center role for this team. But we'll kind of see what Mazzulla does with him moving forward. Maybe he'll see some more time in Maine, maybe not. Today, I feel like I took a note when he checked in as well to say that he was checking in the first quarter, but I think it was literally just to foul Mitchell Robinson in the center of the free throw line. But I do want to see him kind of be on the court a little more in the future just because of how young he is and just his size out there. So it's definitely something to note moving forward.
Yeah, and Tommy, I'm going to give you these three guys tonight for Celtics Nation Rise MVP. And I think there's one obvious one that we're going to end up giving it to, but got to give our little credits at the end of the day. But Derek White, you already mentioned, 22 points in 35 minutes, had a block, a steal, and 5 assists. All right, now these are the two real threats, but I think one really sticks out. Jordan Walsh in 19 minutes, 8 points, 6 rebounds, assist, a steal, a block, and 100%. And down the stretch was super efficient. And I don't believe the Celtics win without Jordan Walsh. They don't. I don't think they do. I could be misunderstood. Maybe they do. But the real key guy tonight, Jaylen Brown, 40 minutes, 42 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, 66.7. Tommy, he had about a good big chunk of our points tonight, almost half of them. Tommy, I'm gonna go first. I'm going Jaylen Brown for your Celtics Nation Rise MVP. Super efficient tonight. He wasn't happy about his first quarter, but the rest of the game, he came out and gave it to the Knicks. He was incredible tonight. And, we couldn't really give him the credit the last 41-point game because we didn't win it. So I think he really deserves the Celtics Nation Rise MVP this night. And I might be wrong, but isn't this his third 40-point game this season?
Yeah, I believe so, which is incredible. And I'm going to have to cast my vote for JB as well. I think you pretty much said it all right there, but he had 22 in the second quarter, 15 in the third quarter. He had a quieter fourth quarter, but at that point, he already, put his input on the game and allowed the Celtics to get that 18-point lead at the end of the third quarter. Again, he finished with over 40. Or did he finish with 40 tonight? Oh, no, 42. Yeah, he finished with 42. So Jaylen Brown, another Celtic CNR MVP award for our guy JB. He is definitely deserving of it tonight.
Yeah, and this is going to be his – hold on, I'm going to check right now. I believe it is his 6th Celtics Nation Rise MVP award. So incredible. And, for me, this is a guy who – when Tatum comes back next year or later this year, it's going to be a scary duo, Tommy. We've been talking about this constantly, but this is a guy that I've been love seeing playing for the Boston Celtics, and this is a guy that we're going to continue to see play good for the Boston Celtics. But do you have any final thoughts? And while you're talking, I'm going to just mute myself, and I'm going to try to pull up an image before we close this out too. But What are your final thoughts on this big game by the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, it was again a great all-around team win. Contributions across the board. The Knicks are never an easy game, and I think they have some matchups that go in their favor, especially within the rebounding game. For the Celtics out rebound them tonight is definitely impressive. It shows kind of their team effort on the glass. And then kind of moving forward, hopefully this next game for them on Thursday is another trap game against Washington, who's 3-17 on the season. So you definitely want to see them get that one and kind of get another game above 500. But I think the Celtics are trending in the right direction. I just want to see them just stay consistent and hopefully string a few wins together.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I cannot pull it up. Airdrop failed, it keeps saying, but I'll show you guys. Tom Thibodeau and Jason Tatum talking.
Yeah, that would have been perfect to pull up, but yeah, I'm sure the Knicks fans love to see that.
So maybe gave some inside tonight. Obviously, new coach, but still, great win tonight. And again, I think, this stretch for the Boston Celtics has been at least the hardest Eastern Conference stretch that we're probably going to see all season. I'll have to check the schedule again, but Eastern Conference stretch, we went through the meat of it. And we also played a Western Conference team in there too. So the tear that they've been on is incredible. And you beat the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Pistons. And I think, the Cavs, they're off to a rough start. They have guys that are missing, but the ones that you really have to highlight is this Knicks and the Pistons win. So two big wins. And, they also mentioned OG Anunoby not playing. And I get that, but we're down our superstar and it's a complete new team. So there's no excuses on the Knicks' behalf. No excuses. No excuses. Huge win, Tommy. And I have to say, we get a little relief when we face Washington. Again, still got to give it to them, but I tell you what, this was a tough week.
Yeah,
And
100%. Yeah, it was, and it was a good stretch. Hopefully, it gets the team, their confidence up as a whole, and they just keep playing with confidence moving forward.
Yeah, well said. But with that being said, you guys, Boston Celtics defeat the New York Knicks with a final score of 117-123. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified every time we upload. And again, I forgot to add this to everyone. Let us know in the comments down below what we should ask Jalen Bridges or Keon Johnson tomorrow at Maine Celtics practice. And then we will bring you guys the s.nation.rise podcast later tomorrow night. So subscribe and turn on post notifications to be updated every time we post those. So we will see you guys on the next one. Peace, guys.